Now, here is the strange thing. As you mentioned, first of all, down the road, there is an entire luxury hotel that we, the taxpayer, are paying to be full of migrants. So why can't some of those migrants go in these units, most of which are empty? And why, too, are there lots of luxury cars all around this estate? Well, I asked that question of the council, and here's what they said. They said, these days, just because you can afford a luxury car doesn't mean you're not homeless.
Isabel Oakeshott has gained a reputation as a fearless journalist who is not afraid to expose the truth, no matter how bitter it may be. She is that rare person who speaks out openly when others prefer to hide behind silence. This became especially evident when Angela Rayner was faced with the difficult question of providing migrants with brand new homes. 5 out of 7 migrants receive housing that most Britons can only dream of. Does that sound fair? Rayner, trapped, stumbled with an answer. And this silence caused shock throughout the country. How is it? For a person at her level, the lack of a clear answer was a real blow.
I actually found that quite distressing to listen to it again. And when I was interviewing her, it was a struggle not to kind of reach out and comfort her, not to interrupt her, but I really wanted viewers to see how unbelievably upset she is, naturally and understandably, about the way she was treated. And what I observed of her when I was in Leeds with her for the afternoon was that she is a quiet pillar of the community. Here's the irony. You know, this is a woman who's being made to do some kind of anti-social behaviour course. She's a bit confused as to whether it's an anti-racist or anti-social behaviour thing, but it's some kind of way of getting rid of so-called cases without actually going through the formalities of court.
Oakeshott's business-like approach sets her apart from other journalists. She doesn't just ask questions, she demands accountability, leaving no stone unturned. When politicians shy away from the harsh truth, Isabel does not allow society to turn a blind eye to reality. This moment was just the beginning of her determined stand against the growing contradictions in the Labour Party. And she is not going to stop. At first, Angela Rayner seemed like a fresh breath for the Labour Party, a hope for change and new energy. Many believed that she would become the brave voice that Labour needed to make a difference. Even Isabel Oakeshott herself was full of hope that Rayner would be able to breathe life into the party. But something has changed. Under the leadership of Keir Starmer, Angela's influence began to fade, and with each passing day, hopes for change become more and more illusory.
Zero chance of turning this around. Zero. Because there was a glaring omission in all of that, which is immigration.
Yeah.
It's like number one thing that exercises Labour voters and many others besides.
And indeed Reform UK voters who are doing better than Labour in the polls at the moment.
How could he have left that off? You know, it is so astonishingly stupid that you begin to think, is there something else at work here? Is someone actually plotting to make this party, this leadership, this particular Prime Minister fail?
Isabel wasn't the only one who noticed this. Voters began to ask the same disturbing question. What happened to Angela Rayner, whom we had been waiting for? It was hard to ignore the cracks in Labour's plans, which were becoming increasingly apparent. This change of government made many people wonder if Labour had lost its advantage, and Isabel was quick to emphasise the growing disappointment. The UK is not just facing difficulties, it is deeply relieved, as if someone had finally opened a window in a stuffy room. Many argue that under the leadership of the Labour Party, the situation in the country is rapidly deteriorating, and this causes anger and discontent. Critics bitterly claim that Labour's policies have left behind a mountain of unfulfilled promises, from catastrophic housing shortages to suffocating economic stagnation. Isabel Oakeshott left no stone unturned, pointing out glaring problems, increasing homelessness, ineffective public services, and a government that seems unable to cope with the situation, leaving people desperate and without hope.
The Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, is with us in the studio this morning. Welcome to you. What's the latest information that the government has? Can you confirm that Assad is gone?
Well, we don't know. The situation on the ground is fast-moving at the moment. If the Assad regime has fallen, then we welcome that news. What we want to see is a political solution along the lines of what the UN resolution is, and we're working with our allies.
Are you sure, though, if this rebel group does take charge, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, they have connections and roots with groups like Al-Qaeda. Are you sure, as a government, they'd be a better option than the Assad regime?
Well, again, working with allies on the UN resolution, we've got to have a government in Syria, a political solution that protects civilians and infrastructure, because, as we've seen with the Assad regime, it has been unstable. We want to see that stability, and we'll work towards that with our allies.
Ordinary people are completely at a loss. How did it happen that the situation reached such a catastrophic point? Families have been waiting for years for their homes, while basic services are on the verge of collapse, and this causes anger and despair. And the leaders of the Labour Party seem to be immersed in their political games, completely oblivious to the fact that their policies do not solve pressing problems. Isabel Oakeshott's sharp and insightful analysis shows that the United Kingdom needs more than just empty promises. It needs leadership that truly hears and understands people. The gap between the ideals of the Labour Party and the real needs of society continues to grow, and Isabel does not tire of demanding responsibility from them.
Bloody dar. I mean, what the hell is that all about? All she's doing there, she's being drilled by the media advisors, the press office. Right, just say something about the UN resolution, and we're sticking to that, and we're working with allies. Very difficult, fast-moving situation. In other words, she didn't have the first clue what she was talking about.
Isabel Oakeshott didn't mince words when she called Angela Rayner's ideas ridiculous. During the interview, she indignantly wondered, how can the government put the interests of migrants above the interests of British citizens who are in distress? Rayner's attempts to defend the Labour Party's position only increased her alienation from reality, and this was obvious. The problem was not only in words, but also in a deep misunderstanding of what people are going through. For Isabel, this is not just a personal matter. It's a struggle to hold leaders accountable for their decisions. When Rayner tried to brush off the criticism, Isabel redoubled her efforts, emphasizing that Labour's approach alienates those they claim to represent. Oakeshott's honesty has thrown away all excuses, leaving Rayner with no chance to dodge difficult and painful questions that require an immediate answer.
2.5 million immigrants that are in Rachel Reeves' budget figures going to turn up. Where are they going to live?
Well, there's plenty of housing in the UK, but the houses, especially social
hang on. You can't, on the one hand, say we've got to build this 1.5 million houses, and then say there's plenty of housing already.
There is plenty of housing, Trevor, already, but there's not enough for the people that desperately need it. So the homes, especially under our affordable homes programme, which is social and affordable housing, there will be there for people who desperately need them, local people. We've already outlined how we're going to support veterans and people who are fleeing domestic violence.
Okay.
Councils need homes for people that are on the waiting list. I've already announced changes to the right to buy, making sure they have
this doesn't quite make sense.
So that we can deliver the houses they desperately need.
Deputy Prime Minister, it doesn't quite make sense. You start the interview by telling me that there's a housing crisis.
The conflict between Angela Rayner and Andrew Neil has become the subject of discussion for all the wrong reasons, and it causes a storm of emotions. When Neil asked her a question about Labour's housing strategy, she faltered, as if she had fallen into a trap, and could not give a single clear answer. Her vague answers and complete lack of confidence gave the impression that she was not just unprepared, but completely lost. Critics have compared this to a situation where a student is under pressure and cannot justify himself, and this comparison sounds painfully true. How can you hope for changes if you can't explain your own plans? For Isabel Oakeshott, this was another clear proof that key figures in the Labour Party are not ready for their roles and do not understand what is happening around them. Andrew Neil's interrogation only confirmed what Isabel had been saying all along. The public deserves clarity, not confusing answers and uncertainty. Rayner's mistake only added fuel to the fire, making the Labour leadership more vulnerable in the eyes of the public than ever.
When I remind you that you have said yourselves as a government, we're going to need 2.5 million migrants. Some of them, by the way, people are going to build the houses. Suddenly, there's a lot of housing. Where are these people going to go?
Well, Trevor, first of all, when you say about building as well, the previous government did use migrant labour far too much instead of actually building skills here in the UK. I've announced £140 million for new construction hubs so that we can train people here to deliver those housing. So I don't accept that we're going to bring migrants in for that. We've always said that actually we need to skill our own people up. But equally, we need to build the homes that people need.
But Angela Rayner is not the only target for Isabel Oakeshott. She relentlessly challenges Keir Starmer and the Labour government as a whole, leaving them no chance to dodge criticism. Whether it's housing, immigration, or the economy, Isabel doesn't take a step back. She fiercely stresses that Labour's promises sound attractive, but fail when it comes to real action. Their cry for justice that requires attention and action. What do you think about this video? Share your thoughts in the comments. See you later.